So we are here presenting with UCI Teacher Academy.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here today. I'm really thankful for Christina and Ali to be able to share some of their experience and expertise with us and with other teachers who want this information. They're doing it on behalf of the UCI Teacher Academy, which is under the umbrella of the UCI School of Education and the Center for Educational Partnerships. And our goal is to support teachers, teacher educators, teacher leaders, and administration through opportunities like this today. One of our founding principles is that the expertise exists in the schools. And so in my role as the coordinator for the MAT program, for the elementary MAT program, I was fortunate to be able to meet Christina Cho. She was a student in the MAT program, then became a mentor teacher for us, and she referred me to Ali. So I'm very excited to hear about what they've been doing in regards to distance learning. So thank you so much for being here today.
And thank you for having us. Like Susan was saying, we are presenting today on distance learning and differentiation. So I'm Alexandra, I go by Ali Rivera, and Christina Cho is presenting with me today. So a little bit about me. I've been in education for over 10 years now. I did it backwards and got my master's first and taught community college, and then decided I wanted to go work with the little ones. So I went back to school to get my multiple subject credential. While doing that, I also worked as a behavioral therapist for children on the autism spectrum and was working as a special education paraprofessional during my credential. So I think we had some people attending from Saddleback Valley Unified. That's where I was working. So shout out to you guys. But have been teaching both ends of the spectrum of special education, from gifted to IDD, PDD diagnosed students. Now working in general education, teaching fourth grade, and have a background in both private and public education. On the side, I also co-founded an education nonprofit that teaches mindfulness practices to teachers, staff, and students, and families in K-12 schools. So locally, we're in Anaheim Union High School District and Garden Grove, as well as a few charter schools. So the social emotional component of learning and teaching is a big one for me, and obviously one that was very affected by distance learning. So that's definitely something I want to address as a teacher as well. I'll toss it over to Christina.
So for me, I am a current fifth grade teacher. I've been teaching for 5 years now. Just recently became a mentor teacher for UCI, which it's pretty cool because I was a graduate of the UCI teaching program. So to be able to teach student teachers that went through the same experiences that I did, that's been pretty awesome. I've taught kind of all grades throughout elementary and had experience from kind of 2 through 5, having moved around at different schools, different grades. So it's been interesting to kind of be in different places, see the emotional growth and the academic growth within different grades. On the side for me, I am a big CGI math lover. I love argumentation and having students really share and experience their ideas and their mathematical reasoning abilities. I love having them be able to share on all ends of the spectrum. And so I was fortunate enough to actually work with one of my professors from UCI, and I was published in NCTM about differentiation in math and different teaching strategies that you can do to encourage all of your students to participate and share. And so that's what I like to do on the side. As well as that, I am big on technology and incorporating tech into the classroom. So I was fortunate enough to present at Q for the past 3 years about incorporating technology into your classroom to kind of really extend students' learning and make it deeper using technology rather than having tech just be a little piece that you implement into the classroom. So distance learning was definitely still challenging, but it was pretty cool to see how if you kind of incorporate all of these technological aspects into your instruction, it really does transfer over very well to the kids when they're at home learning as well. So our objectives for today, we wanted to kind of go over different existing practices and processes in the classroom. I think we had, Ali and I both set up very structured and routine classrooms prior to distance learning, which just helped kind of transfer everything over. So kind of wanted to talk about the different practices that we have in our classrooms in person, which then let us kind of transfer them over to distance learning. We did also, have our own challenges with differentiation and instruction. So we wanted to talk about those challenges and then mention these solutions that we came up with to kind of alleviate those struggles that we had. The last thing that we will end with is providing a list of educational resources and tools that you guys could actually take back and use in your own classrooms, whether it be in person or online. About Ali and I, we were talking one night about the struggles that we had faced during distance learning, which led us to realize that we had very similar philosophies in teaching, which helped us kind of share different resources.
Great point. That's really why we wanted to bring up the rapport building you all had in your classroom before, because it is so important, as we all know, to get to know our students at that level, at that social emotional level, and understand, you know, their home life, what they're dealing with, what they're bringing to school every day, how they're approaching situations based on learned behaviors and what emotions they're feeling. So if we don't provide that space to build that kind of rapport and create a safe space in our classrooms, and that lends itself to all that, obviously that will not translate to distance learning either. So it's going to make distance learning much more complicated and much more difficult to stay connected to the students if you never had a connection with them in the first place. So that's a huge component of making distance learning work effectively as well. It definitely looks different and feels different, and it's exhausting in a different way when it's done online and you're not with the kids in the same room. You're not able to see really all their body language. It's just what you can see on the screen. So it's definitely a different kind of reading the students, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But basically, quick overview of what our classrooms look like, Christina and I, before distance learning, and how that helped translate to distance learning. Like we were saying, we had a classroom culture that was intentional, that we built up specifically around relationships and community. So we had individual check-ins, sunshine emails to tell parents and families about good things going on with the kids at school, morning meetings, taking the time to just spend time together with either specific question of focus or just maybe in quiet meditation practice or something like that. We also have class jobs and class roles, so helping the students take ownership of their part in their classroom and understanding and respecting other people's roles in the classroom too. And then we also have just general beginning of the year activities. So as a school, every grade level creates every individual classroom creates a class constitution. So the students help come up with the rules that will help them learn the best and have the most positive learning environment. And then everyone signs the Constitution. We kind of hang it up in the classroom and we abide by those rules, and we reference it throughout the year, and how we're sticking to it and how we can maybe improve upon that. Student bingo, just getting to know each other, finding students with similar likes, or students that are interested in different things and what we can learn from them and their interests. And then obviously incorporating just school community rules throughout, reviewing those and reinforcing those in a positive way. I think Christina and I are very big on PBIS type systems of classroom management and really reinforcing the good versus punishing what we don't want to see. So that creates a culture where the kids feel a lot safer to take risks in learning as well, and be more flexible and be more dynamic and have a growth mindset and understand that things don't always go to plan, and we can be problem solvers and try to figure it out from there. So having that whole culture built up in your classroom before going to distance learning, I think definitely benefited not only us as teachers, but the kids as well, to be able to kind of switch on a dime like that and be like, oh, I just have to be flexible. Or, some of the little phrases we taught them during the school year definitely helped to not make it such a big, scary, crazy thing all of a sudden.
Having a kid be vulnerable and share with their classmates is huge, and it does take a lot of practice. And so the fact that we had these morning meetings or these individual conferences and check-ins, class jobs where they felt a sense of responsibility in the classroom, I think that was something that they had missed in distance learning because they weren't with their friends and their peers anymore. They were missing that ability to kind of connect with their classmates, connect with their teacher, And so the fact that we had these different systems in place, we were able to kind of make them digital to where they weren't as effective, but at the same time, they were still getting check-ins with us. They were still getting sunshine emails here and there. They had their morning meetings, and we were able to just take these routines that we had done online. So they were still kind of having a sense of normalcy of being in the classroom and being with their friends.
So then going into the actual processes we had set up, obviously having these in place and the students knowing them and understanding them makes your classroom in person run much more smoothly. So that translated pretty well to distance learning as well. So the ones that we kind of had set up that were related to distance learning before we even knew this was happening were, login cards and stickers for every program they have a login for. So what I would do is just print them all out for the kids on Avery mailing templates, and the kids have a toolkit binder, and they would just stick them in there, and then I have that file saved. So if for some reason that got peeled off or whatever, they lost it, I could stick it right on there. Same thing for the parents. If they wanted the kids' email, I could access it all in one place and get it to the people who needed it. We also incorporated digital citizenship lessons. We use a lot of technology as a school. We're a PBL-based school. So understanding how to use technology, why to use technology, when to use technology, digital safety, using technology appropriately. All those were lessons we had already implemented at the beginning of the school year, and really paid off with distance learning as well. We did something fun in our 4th grade class that was a little scavenger hunt for the Google Suite. I know most schools use the Google Suite, so they'd have to go to different programs like Google Slides and make a slideshow with a certain background, or add an animation, and then they go to the next task in Google Doc and type something up, or copy and paste a picture, or things like that. So those were actually pretty easy to make up. It's just thinking about the skills your kids will need with technology that school year. So do they need to know how to make websites? Do they need to know how to find information? Do they need to know how to find pictures? And that would be kind of things you put on the scavenger hunt. So we did that at the beginning of the year, so I could see how many kids can even do these types of things and who might need help with it, and B, to get them familiarized with the Google Suite and where to actually find everything, and just play around with it in a low risk environment versus giving them a project right away and be like, okay, go figure it out. So that was a fun little activity for them. We also had different classroom management systems we did. So I used Class Dojo. Christina, I used
Do raffle tickets.
Yeah. So all more PBIS type systems, but you can go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a question about that.
Yes, I have a question about Google Suite scavenger hunt. I am new to technology, so I'm trying to visualize how you did that, or how you had the kids go to all the different applications, and how were you able to see what they did, and if they were able to do it.
So I set it up as a Google slide for the directions on Google Classroom. So I created an assignment on Google Classroom. On Google Classroom, posted that slide with all the directions on it. So it'd be step 1, create a new Google Doc and find a piece of information about whatever you want them to find research on. Copy and paste the website you got it from. And then step 2 would be, so they'd create their own Google Doc, and I could see that they did it on that. And then step 2 would be create a Google slide and find a picture of blah, 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 find 3 facts about, I think we're learning about Harlem Renaissance poets actually during this time when I did that. So it was find a picture of Langston Hughes, find 3 facts about Langston Hughes, and add some kind of animation with either the picture or the words. So that's zooming in, the word zooming in, or the picture spinning around or something like that. So some kids got very creative with it. Some were what is animation? I don't know what that means. So that was a great way to figure out what they knew and what they didn't know. But I like I said, just templated all those steps on one Google slide for them to see on Google Classroom. And then once they start creating all those on the back end of Google Classroom, you can see all the students' work. So you can either click by individual student and see their work, or go to like all the Google Docs in your classroom or all the Google Slides in your classroom to see who's working on what and their progress on it. In the beginning of the year, I showed them where in Google it was, like, where's your Google Drive? Mm-hmm. This is what you click on, the 3 hot dog lines or whatever, your hamburger lines, whatever you want to call it, and then show them where all the programs are. So from there, they had to figure out how to do what. And coming into 4th grade, I had them. They have some familiarity with most of the programs, so that they could kind of figure it out, most of it out for themselves. Some of them would get stuck, and I'd be like, okay, like, this is how you change the color of the text.
Okay, so it was like a pre-assessment. So that's
order and pick color. Right.
Okay.
And I will say, I will give a plug to getting Google certified as an educator. If you're like new to technology and Google Classroom and all that, it's definitely worth investing a little bit in yourself to do that, because it makes it much less scary to use all these different pieces, because there's a lot of different pieces in Google Classroom, and a lot of them we don't even utilize because we're not sure how to. So if that's something you're interested in, then you can just Google. I tried to let them find and figure it out as much as they could, because I wanted to set it up from the start that, like, you guys are problem solvers. You have all the tools you need to figure it out. If you get to a point where you're really stuck and maybe asking other friends and they don't know either, then I'll kind of come in and assist. But a lot of the students I was noticing were getting stuck at certain parts. So then I, as a teacher, say, okay, we're going to have a lesson on how to do XYZ. It was a great tool for me. And even like during the school year, I'd actually go back and look at their scavenger hunt pages and be like, okay, like this, we need to build up these skills a little bit. And yeah, like you said, it was immediate differentiation with technology side of things and what they are capable of and what we actually need to have lessons on from there. So a lot of kids didn't even know how to do a Google search or what the toolbar up there was for. So we, noticed things like that during those kind of activities. Definitely all about collaborating and finding best practices, because technology is there to make our lives easier. It's not there to make it difficult for us. So if we learn more about it and find how best to use it, we can definitely do that. Christina, did you want to talk about the Zoom contracts?
So for the sake of time, we're just going to keep moving through. So these are different things that we had done during distance learning to kind of streamline our processes so that way our kids would know what to do. I'm pretty big on norms and making sure kids understand how they're supposed to behave. My students can very clearly say, like, this is how we behave in this situation, this is how we behave here. And so I wanted to also make sure that distance learning was new, so I wanted to create norms for them so that way they knew how to behave. So right here, if you take a look on the left, there is the guides and norms posted. And these are just kind of simple norms that I had realized after my first online session. These are different things that we're going to have to kind of troubleshoot. So these were the norms that I listed out for them. I shared it with them on Google Classroom and then had them type their name below to acknowledge that they read the document. So that way I knew that they were, 1, looking at it, 2, that they were reading it, and 3, understanding it. I made it very clear that you're signing your name and you're agreeing to follow these norms. So this kind of helped taking a look at that Padlet, the participation piece, having kids sign on and being present for sessions, having them really contribute to lessons. These norms just kind of allowed them to realize, like, when I'm on an online session, this is what I need to do and this is how I should behave. The biggest issue that I noticed in other classrooms was the chat feature. A lot of kids, they took that chat feature and decided to talk to their friends as if they were just having conversations off to the side. And so having these norms and being very specific with them allowed them to know, this is instruction time and this is how I need to act. If I'm in a session that's more for fun, like our Fun Friday sessions, I don't necessarily need to follow these norms because it's our Fun Friday session and I can be a little bit more loose with the guidelines. But for instructional time, having these norms really help them just kind of guide what they should be doing. If you take a look, we mentioned prior to distance learning, we had class jobs. I wanted to kind of continue that through online learning so that way kids had responsibilities. I created a classroom ambassadors job for 5 students. I started this kind of in the middle of distance learning, so I just picked 5 kids that I knew were extremely responsible. But I would have classroom ambassador meetings where I would have a Zoom meeting with my 5 classroom ambassadors, and I would kind of share all the important information for that week. And they were in charge of sharing that information with their classmates. And it was pretty cool to see these kids. One of the classroom ambassadors emailed me later and she went, Ms. Cho, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to be a classroom ambassador. I want to be a teacher in the future, and this really helped me do that. They had a little group chat with all of their group members. And rather than me having to deal with 32 questions, my classroom ambassadors actually dealt with a lot of the questions, because the classmates would just be like, oh, when is our session for this? When is our session for this? What assignment is due? And rather than me getting all of those little questions, the classroom ambassadors actually answered those questions for me. And so this is just kind of my little contract for being a classroom ambassador and what that would look like. And so just having, I realized the biggest thing on online learning is a lot of the responsibilities fell on you as the teacher. And so how can we, in the classroom, we can kind of distribute those out within our kids, but through distance learning, how can we create opportunities to kind of also disperse responsibilities for students to kind of, the kids that are very independent, how can we give them challenges to kind of step up and help their own peers? So they actually created their own Zoom sessions where they would kind of help kids with small groups. So if kids in their group were struggling, they would set up a session for them, and then they would kind of help give them practice problems and talk them through problems or homework problems. So giving them those types of opportunities as well was huge. And then moving on to the next one.
Talking about classroom schedules. So our school, we had to meet one-on-one with students once a week. And then we did small groups and office hours. So this is kind of what the typical schedule looked like. A lot of this was making all the information as clear as possible, accessible in one place for the parents to find, because that's where the issues were coming up, where it was like, I don't know where to find their work for the week. I don't know where to find the Zoom information. I don't know where to find XYZ. So we had, this is like a spreadsheet we created for our 4th grade class of meeting times. It was a Google sheet, so all the parents had access to it, all the kids had access to it. The parents signed the kids up for a certain time. That time stayed the same time every week. Same with the group times, so there's no question of like week by week changing. In those schedules, we also have the Zoom links there. We have the passwords if they need them. So basically trying to take out the guesswork as much as possible, and multiple kids, so just did that in different ways. So that kind of added to the parent confusion as well. Whereas like in my class, at least they knew the one place to look to find their weekly schedule, and the Zoom meetings and all the links, or Google Meets if you're doing that instead. So as an additional tab on that spreadsheet is what you see on the left, the color coded of all the small groups, Zoom information and passwords. And then on the right is an email I would send out every week with an overview to the student and the parent. I would send it to the student and CC the parents, because it's the student's responsibility to make sure they're where they need to be. But it would be quick overview like this of check-in times, workshop times, their one-to-one meeting time, the Zoom link, and their small groups. So this was kind of the email template I came up with to weekly send out, and those Zoom links aren't changing, so it's really not much to change and send it out every week. It's just, changing what week it is, and if, there's days missing of school, you'd add that in or something like that if you have a day off of school. Some of these I think came up in the conversation I just had, but these are things that Christina and I noticed together in collaborating, some of the main issues with differentiation and distance learning. So being able to identify students who need additional support with that immediate feedback, We can't see them while they're working a lot of the times in distance learning, so we don't see it they need the help until after they've turned it in, or after it's almost like too late kind of thing. So then we can pull them into small groups after that. But we, in the classroom setting, we would have caught it, on the spot. So that was really hard for us to kind of adapt to. On the flip side of that, incorporating meaningful challenge opportunities. So you have the kids that are higher in your classes who are done with their weekly work on Monday and are like, okay, now what? And their parents are like, all right, now what? So being able to find resources and tools that aren't just busy work and that are still going to give you good data that the kids can work on is something that we're definitely going to talk about as a solution.
So as a general, these are kind of the solutions that we came up with. So the use of breakout rooms is actually pretty cool. So it's what we've done today. We just kind of wanted to show you what that looked like. Our school was fortunate enough that our SPED staff was kind of involved in all of our small group meetings and all of our whole group sessions. So with the breakout rooms, you can actually assign which kids go to a breakout room and which kids stay in the whole group session. So I would use my breakout room as kind of like in a whole class lesson, if you have a small group at the back table working with maybe an IA that you have in your classroom, I would actually give them a breakout room to where if they were confused or lost in the lesson, I would assign them to a small group and they would kind of leave the whole group to kind of work on additional problems. And then once they felt comfortable, they would just come back and join the whole group again. So just having a system of breakout rooms where they can go to a place to kind of slow the lesson down a bit and then rejoin the whole group lessons. That way they still felt included. I use breakout rooms in that sense. Having them talk, a lot of the engagement in a whole group is very little. You don't really get kids saying much because the teacher's the one sharing a lot. So allowing kids the opportunity to talk and share, I would use the breakout rooms in that feature. The one little challenge to that is as the teacher, you could only go to one room at a time. And so what I did is I would create small groups and put my one classroom ambassador in each group. So they would kind of be the facilitators for that small group discussion to make sure that everyone was staying on track. We also had small group time. So like Ali mentioned within her schedule, we were kind of required to have one-to-one check-ins, small group times, whole group times, and office hours. So having times for our kids every single day where we would see them live face-to-face gave us that opportunity to really check in with them. If they were struggling, we could offer them help. If they found it too easy, we can kind of extend our lessons to see if they really did need a push or a challenge. Those are the times to do that. Ali came up with a really cool idea for students that finish their work early. We would give our assignments weekly. So you'd have those high flyer kids that finish all of their assignments by Tuesday. And so how could we keep them engaged throughout the week to still attend lessons and do work? So she came up with this really cool bonus activity menu that I also kind of took from her and made my own bonus activity menu that we would give out to kids. If you finish your assignments early, here are some cool extension/challenge activities that you can do. We will go into all those resources later, which kind of goes to that last one, the online resources and programs. There's a lot of programs and resources out there, and it's hard for teachers to kind of sit down and actually weed through what is going to be beneficial for the classroom and what's going to work for our kids. So Ali and I have started a list for you guys that we will then talk about at the end of our session today. The kids really loved seeing us every single day and seeing their classmates every single day. And so having those opportunities, I think for us, even though it was challenging, seeing the kids so excited to see their friends and really be excited to be on online live sessions, it made it doable for us.
Yeah, and the one-on-one time was definitely very beneficial too. Okay, so like Christina said, there's all kinds of online resources and tools and software out there. So the main thing we want to emphasize today is intentional selection of those tools and what's going to provide the most bang for your buck, or $0, hopefully. And then what's school provided and what you can kind of resource online for free. So
I'll start with the school provided ones. Our school, we're fortunate that we do have the Kids A to Z and RAS Kids program for our kids. And so this is a reading program. If you are not familiar with it, I would maybe go and look into it and then ask admin what they think about it. It's a great reading program where it has leveled reading. So you can assign a reading level to each of your students, and it'll pre-select a bunch of text, whether it's narrative or informational, at their own reading level. They can read it at their own pace, and then they answer questions about the reading afterwards. So it kind of gives them the reading comprehension component. Raz Kids is actually really fun because it's a home program, and once the kids finish reading a story and answering questions, they kind of get coins that they use to build their own little robot. And so they enjoy doing that. So it's kind of the incentive to keep going. We have ST Math, which is just a great, fun math program. This one, if your school doesn't have it, I think you have to buy the whole system for this one, but it's just a good math game practice. And the last one, Seesaw and Flipgrid, we put it under school provided because our school does have the Seesaw program purchased. However, both of these are actually free, and they kind of do run very similarly. I have spoken to both the representatives, the CEOs of both of those companies. I've used Seesaw for a K-1-2. Seesaw is very iPad friendly. So if your classroom is a mainly iPad classroom, or you know that most of your kids at home have iPads, I would use Seesaw. It's a great video recording software where you as a teacher can pose a question or pose an assignment and the kids can record their own videos, draw, talk. Seesaw is great for that sense. If you are in 3, 4, 5, Flipgrid is actually a little bit better because it is kind of more of an online program to where the kids have their own class page. You can release a prompt and then the kids all can record videos and they can actually respond to each other. So I would use this in my class for math. We do accounting collections. They would record how they counted, and then my kids would actually go and like listen to all of their classmates and then record, oh, I really like how you counted that collection. I would have done that same thing. Or, oh, your counting method is a little confusing. Could you kind of explain a little bit more what you did? That way there's a sense of communication going on. And so I would use Flipgrid throughout distance learning to where I would pose a question and my kids would be recording videos and then responding to each other. So that way they were still kind of talking to each other, but that was on their own time. So whether they couldn't attend the live session, at least they were having some sort of conversation component throughout the week. I know in kindergarten, they use Flipgrid. When it was a kid's birthday, they would post that it was someone's birthday and all the kids record a video of themselves singing happy birthday to their classmate. And so just having that sense of, again, that community building, still staying connected with their friends, that's a great program to use for that.
And some of the outside resources that might not be school provided but are free that I have come to love are Prodigy, which is a math program. This is an adaptive program. I'll go into a little bit more detail of it later, but I used it a lot of the times because ST Math is school provided, and I want to make sure the kids are using that and getting through that first. So a lot of those high flyer kids in my teaching years, I've noticed kind of finish ST Math by winter break or shortly after winter break. So then it's like, now what? So then Prodigy was kind of like the reward. All right, you get to go on a game one, like a new game one now. And it does totally adapt to their level. So it goes up to, I believe, 6th or 7th grade math. So they could be in 4th grade, and if they're ready for that stuff, it's going to keep going and keep, challenging them there. Same thing with Freckle. So the ELA and math components of Freckle are free. The Prodigy add-ons, it's more from the student side of things if they want to like access different levels, or it's very game-based. So if they want to buy stuff for their character or things like that, that would be like the paid side of it. The Freckle paid side of it is more accessing assessments, like benchmark assessments, and the social studies and science curriculum side of it. So I mostly use Freckle for ELA and math only. However, there's a way to get around the paid side and get access to the social studies and science stuff too. So I will share a little bit more about that as well. And then an outside one that is paid, completely paid, other than a 30-day free trial, is IXL. So that is very standard specific based. So you basically assign a standard to the kids, and same kind of idea, they're earning coins or progress badges and things like that based on specific standards. So that could supplement if you're noticing in assessments or student work, oh, they need particular practice in a certain standard, either in math or ELA, then you can actually assign the activities of all that standard, and there's all different kinds of activities they can work through on that. But I'll talk a little bit more about Prodigy and Freckle specifically. Okay, so for Prodigy, like I was saying, it's game-based, it's adapted to student level. There's some paid additional components, and with that, you can actually refer teachers to get access to those components. But the reason I like Prodigy so much is because it gives you really great data. So this is like a quick screenshot overview of a benchmark assessment within Prodigy. Basically, I could go to whatever questions they got wrong, open it up, see the exact question, see what they did wrong, have a discussion about it, maybe give that same question to them in a different environment and target their learning through that. But on the back end teacher version of Prodigy, these are some of the components it has. So as you can see, they have a variety of reports on the right side. So you can do progress monitoring, you can do comprehension of certain skills, you can see how much they're using it, you can see weekly activity. The placement tests are always great. Usually when they log in the first time, they make them do a placement test just so they see what kind of questions they should be giving them. Assignments or plans, so you can assign a specific standard to cover a certain amount of days. So for instance, we were doing adding and subtracting fractions. So I targeted that standard specifically over those couple of weeks that we were teaching it in class, and they'd have to go through all the questions of adding and subtracting fractions before they could go to the rest of the game. So it's kind of like a quick progress check. If they're struggling with that, it's going to go back and like reteach them earlier skills and give them simpler problems to be able to work back up to that. But it's all staying within that standard that you assign in order for them to move on to the rest of the game. So same thing with topic or curriculum. Those are the same kind of ideas. And then on the left, you can do different kinds of assessments too. So standard based, you can just quiz them on a set of skills, or there's actual SBAC preparation you can embed in the game too. So these are all great tools to be able to get student data and adapt your instruction based on what you're seeing with that data. So this is what it looks like on the student side of things. So some questions are multiple choice. I think I saw that question pop up. Some, they have to type in the number answer, and then it's like kind of like a wizard based game. So they like cast the spell, and if they get it right, they get to move on. But if they get it wrong, then the game kind of adapts from there and does kind of like reteaching activities before they can move on in the game as well. So this game is like never ending. So unlike ST Math, they could go with it as long as they want, many directions as they want. So I think when I was teaching GATE 3rd grade, they got up to like 6th grade geometry, and it was like still going. And it was like, okay, yeah, yep, keep going, see where it takes you. So that's a whole other world they'll get lost in for a while. As far as Freckled, so this is the teacher side of it. It is game-based and adaptive as well. So I just did a quick screenshot of the ELA side of things. So one of the paid components of Freckle is having access to assessments. They give you a certain amount, or a certain number of assessments you can do. I believe it's 30 initially. So if you have more than 30 students, you need more access. So one of the things I would recommend, we'll get into, is using those referral links to grant yourself access to get more assessments. So I always do in the beginning of the year, an ELA assessment in Freckle and then a math assessment in Freckle. So based on that initial ELA assessment, they'll give you the students' current reading levels and word study levels. They'll give you individual student goal setting. They'll give you performance by the standard, specific standard, and then class grouping as well if you want to differentiate it by that. So like I said, ELA and math come free with some limitations, usually with assigning assessments. So when you sign up for like a referral link or you get a free trial or free access, then I would say do not do it until you're ready to assess the kids and use it for the assessment right away, because that'll kind of lay the groundwork of where they go and how it adapts to them from there. But this is the student side of it, what it looks like. So if you can see on the top left corner, it is by Renaissance. So if you use Accelerated Reader, same company. But you can assign by standard, you can assign by skill, you can assign benchmark assessments, and all different kinds of things like that. So that is what the student version looks like. It is game-based. They do have little characters, and they do like collect coins and little accept their character, and that's very motivating for them as well. Okay.
So what we're going to share with you right now is Allie and I have actually created a resource list. Our goal for this is we kind of want this to be a working list with all of you. I think we're all kind of in this distance learning time period together. So we've started a resource list for all of you. The bit.ly is right there. So if you guys want to grab that bit.ly, you guys can open up the Google Sheet. We've started it, but we are asking you guys that if you found really cool resources, go ahead and put them onto that Google Sheet. And that way we can just kind of create this big list of resources that we as teachers could use. So we kind of want this to just be open and working. I'm going to share it with you guys right now so that way you can see it. So if you take a look here, we just kind of have all the resources that we've used. We have them also hyperlinked. So all you need to really do is just click on that link. We've got all the ones that we've kind of talked about. You can look at the different programs that we've used that are school provided, our outside free resources that Allie and I have talked about. Mystery Science is great for science lessons. You can sign up for a free subscription and they just give you lessons. Khan Academy is great. Because of distance learning, Khan Academy actually partnered with Disney. And so they have a whole Disney program where kids can kind of imagineer their own land for Disneyland or Disney World. And they also partnered with Pixar to where they can learn how Pixar animators create their own little short series. So there's a lot of stuff that's kind of fun for them as well as academic. And then we have these bonus extension activities of different companies that have created free resources for kids to use at home because of distance learning and what kids have had to do. So you can go ahead and take a look at all of these. Feel free to add to this list. I think it'd be really cool if we ended up just kind of growing this big online resources list for you guys. And I think Allie was going to mention the referral links really quickly off to the side.
Yeah, so like I was saying, some components of those free programs are not accessible unless you pay for them. However, if you use the referral links, so example for Prodigy, you'll get 3 months premium. I get it too, so full disclosure, or you get what you give. So Freckle, same thing, you get 30 days free of complete like open access. So that's when I would do not click these links, do not sign up until you are in school ready to use them, because the time starts as soon as you sign up. So you can go to the website links on the left side, but until you're ready to actually use them at school, do not click the referral links. But yes, they will give you access to the assessment side of things, which I think is very important. And it also will help the kids kind of navigate and get familiar with those sites so that if it does go to completely distance learning, they'll know where to access their assignments. They'll know what exactly they need to do within those programs as well. So the other thing Christina mentioned was like the bonus menu or activity menu for the kids that did finish. So you can set that up kind of whatever way you want. I did it by subject, and then I would find either activities in Freckle or online somewhere else that I could assign to those kids that would be supplemental or extension activities. So one of the things we were doing was learning about the gold rush in 4th grade. So I would find additional articles or additional social studies resources online or in Freckle that the kids could read and do extension activities with. And then it's up to you to just like provide a whole menu and say like, do whatever you want to do or do as much as you want to do. Or you can make it kind of more like a bingo thing. Create like it and put in all the extension activities. The kids can decide which ones they want to do and open it up to the whole class, not just the kids who finish early. And then at one of those Fun Friday activity type meetings, we would either, reward the people who got maybe like a whole row of activities, or maybe I'd call out a certain letter and a certain number, and whoever did that one activity, extra activity, would get a prize of some kind. So you guys can kind of organize it however you want, whatever you're noticing with your students, if they're doing a lot of the activities, or if you just want to reward them for doing like a little bit above and beyond, then that's fine too.
So that is pretty much the end of our presentation. We'll just now take some Q&As now. I know there was a question about classroom ambassadors earlier. I have it recorded here. I think what I would do differently is set it up in a way where the current classroom ambassadors could train new students so that a lot of different kids would have that ability to have that responsibility. I set it up just kind of last minute, and I really picked the 5 kids that I knew I could depend on to make my life a little bit easier. But I think if I were to do this all year long, I would definitely allow the job to kind of be teachable and trainable so that kids would be able to learn how to take that responsibility and then do it. And then what platform do they use to communicate with kids? They did use Zoom. However, because we have a lot of, our Google Suite is our main source of technology that we do at CRA. They use Google Chats and Google Meets and Google Hangouts to kind of talk with each other, as well as Google Classroom. They create their own doc as well.
Okay, so a couple questions I just have in the chat. Can we share professional development distance learning resources?
So I'm gonna share we're gonna link the template for the schedules and all the stuff that we shared today. We'll link that on that resources sheet as well, so that way you guys will have it.
And then there's, obviously, we didn't want to overwhelm you with information today, but there are great resources to use during Zoom. So we just showed you what's, breakout rooms and things like that today, but Pear Deck is a great one for incorporating with Google Slides, quizzes, Edupuzzle. I mean, any collaboration we can add to this list will definitely help make it more effective for all of us. So if you guys have specific resources you noticed were effective and worked, please feel free to add them to the list, and don't worry about linking specific things. We can all Google what we need to, but if you have a link, great. If not, that's okay too. But yes, feel free to share any knowledge, wisdom you've gained during this very interesting time of teaching as well.
I just wanted to say thank you. I felt like I had a blind spot on starting my year 2021, whether it be in class or online, because I know we have to be prepared for remote learning. And now I know where to get started. So thank you very much.
That's awesome.
I'm glad we could help. It is overwhelming thinking about all the different scenarios going into this new school year. So whatever we can do to simplify. Of the 32 students I had, there was 2 or 3 that were pretty inconsistent, I will say, with turning in assignments or showing up to meetings. So, I mean, there was a tiers of level we kind of did to track them down. So, emailing them, trying to contact parents, having the school try to contact them.
Yeah.
Most of it didn't get to that level. They'd show up eventually on something. So it was like, all right, we know they're good. We know they're still doing some of the things they need to be doing, but it was just such a weird, I would have them pick every week usually, but I have some like menu for them to choose from, or if they wanted to come up with their own, they could approve it with me. But I would pick the students by either like participation for the week prior, or maybe I would give them like a specific social emotional skill we're working on that week. And if they demonstrated that skill particularly well somehow in an opportunity in distance learning, then maybe they would be the ones that week. So they'd get recognition for being the person to pick, and then they'd know for the following week. So they'd have a week to figure out basically what they want to that Fun Friday activity for the class.
Yeah, for me, I would have my classroom ambassadors ask their small groups of kids or like their little group, what activities they would want for Fun Friday. And then my classroom ambassadors would come together and they actually planned out my Fun Fridays and would run that whole session for me. Yeah, but they came up with some pretty fun things. We would do bingo. I teach 5th grade, so we did Are You Smarter Than a 5th Grader? I brought on some other teacher or some other recess staff member from our school, and they actually versed the adult, and so they got to play Are You Smarter Than a 5th Grader? We did like a scavenger hunt. We did, there's a fun activity where it's like you pick one item that's really small and they call a classmate and they have to find an item that's a little bit bigger. I think we're their favorite.
Yeah, which is good. It's still good to see them either way. But if there is no other questions, I just wanted to thank you all for taking the time out of your summer day to be with us and learn with us and help us learn too, and, you know, all become better educators in this very unique, unprecedented time as well. So thank you for taking the time to be here with us and participate with us.
Thank you to all the participants for spending your time with